Hello, my name is Georgina Brant, and today I'd like to introduce you to the PowerPoint Teaching Children that it's okay not to know. Speech, language and communication needs, or SLCN, are not always obvious and are often masked by apparent good and clear speech. But it's often the more visible and associated behaviour that is identified and is manifested as emotional, social or literacy difficulties. The aim of this PowerPoint is to introduce you to a strategy by Maggie Johnson that I have successfully used over many years and can help all students. I have used this in a one-to-one, small group and a whole class setting. It's okay not to know. This strategy aims to give children the confidence to actively listen and to say when they do not understand, to give them the confidence to ask for help, to help them understand what kind of help they might need. This strategy takes away the onus from the student. It's not always their fault. Importantly, it is not a stand-alone strategy. How to introduce a strategy, it's okay not to know. To begin with, it's very important that children learn how to achieve active listening. And this is done by agreeing the listening rules. And obviously this is any setting, group, one-to-one or class setting. Now with children, we often ask them, we constantly in a classroom setting or in a learning environment, ask them to listen and to listen carefully to help them to learn. But often, especially the younger ones, do not understand the skills required to achieve good listening. So it's a case of talking through with them and helping them understand what they are. So we achieve good listening by looking at the person who's talking. And for those that find it difficult to give eye contact, it's looking in the direction of the person that's talking. So I know if you're listening to me, if you're looking at me. Also by showing good sitting. So that is not disturbing others, relaxed shoulders. But it's important as an educator to make sure that the chairs are the appropriate size for the children. They have adequate space on the carpet. So show me you're listening to me, or I can see you're listening to me because you're looking at me. Fantastic sitting, well done. And finally, good waiting. What is good waiting? Well, one person speaking at a time, turn taking. And how do we achieve this? Yes, hands up. We put our hands up, we are turn taking. I can only listen to one person at a time. And I can tell you're listening to me because you're looking at me and you're sitting beautifully. But be explicit with your expectations. Be consistent with your expectations and be a good role model in the classroom. Very importantly, it's not just to tell the children these rules, it's to ask them, how do we learn? How do we do good listening? Tell them, ask them to tell you what the skills are required to achieve active listening. Importantly, this isn't something that you just do once at the beginning of the term. It needs constant reinforcing, constant reminders. One way of reinforcing is by having visual displays and have them available to remind them what good listening looks like, what the expectations are. You can prompt the children with Makaton signs. No need to disrupt the whole class. Use your Makaton sign and achieve. Obviously, positive praise is just as important. Oh, Aisha, that's fantastic sitting. And then the whole class sits up beautifully. Oh, well done, Freddie. You put your hand up. That's really good waiting. And I know that Sarah is listening because she's looking at me. Once the listening skills have been clarified, you can introduce the first symbol for it's okay not to know, the happy face symbol. I generally show it to the class, the children or the group, introduce them as a friend that I take everywhere, and ask them how my friend is feeling, linking it to the classroom situation. How's he feeling? Obviously, they'll say happy. Why is my friend feeling happy in class? And they generally come up with, they have a friend, they're learning. Fantastic. Yes. What helps? What's my friend doing that's helping my friend to learn? He's doing really, really good listening, just like you. He's looking at me when I'm talking, just like you. He's sitting beautifully and putting his hand up when he wants to say something. And once the skills of good listening have been explained, understood and demonstrated, and the happy face of it's okay not to know, what I like to do is to explain to the class or small group that I'd like to share a short narrative with them, and that everyone has to demonstrate all the skills of good listening, because I'll be asking everybody some questions about what they've heard. So you need to wait for all to demonstrate good listening. Use positive praise if required. Then I share a short narrative or information with the class or small group. Now the key to this is to include either some unfamiliar words. You can speak really, really quickly. You can speak really quietly. Or you can arrange for lots of background noise. And then you can begin. And I'll give you an example of what I do. Just an example. Here is my story. So everybody do really, really good listening. Oh, let me see. I can see you're listening to me. You're looking at me. Fantastic. So listen carefully, because I'm going to ask you all questions about the story. One zesty morning, in a spidin in the Dassos, lived Gokini Skufica and Midera. Midera called Gokini Skufica and asked her to bare the basketa with Hiroshima to Yaya. Once you've shared the information of your narrative with disruptions, with unfamiliar words, by speaking quiet, whatever it might be, then the impossible questions. So you can ask questions that you know they will struggle to answer, which I know seems unfair, but you'll understand as we move on. But it's important, any answer they give is to praise them. Praise them for putting their hands up by turn taking, but praise all responses. So here are some of my questions. What kind of morning was it? Where did they live? Who was the main character in the story? What was she asked to do? Who did she have to take it to? What did she have to take? Now it's time to own up. After sharing the short story, then I'll introduce the other side, the other face of it's okay not to know. I ask the children to discuss the emotion. How is my friend feeling now? How is my friend feeling after hearing the short story that I shared? We'll discuss it and we'll agree on confused. Why is my friend feeling like this? Why are they feeling confused? Generally, they'll say because my friend was not doing good listening. But then I explain that my friend was the best listener. My friend was doing brilliant listening, absolutely fantastic sitting, and good waiting. They're trying their very, very best, just like you were. Because then I'll own up to the trick that, in fact, it was impossible to answer some of those questions because there were some really tricky words that weren't even in English. I was tricking them. So own up to whatever trick it was. Then I'll discuss with them that when we're learning in school, that maybe that there'll be some new or tricky words. And that's okay, because it's okay not to know. Maybe sometimes the teachers are talking far too quickly. It's difficult to understand when someone's talking too quickly. It's okay not to know. Maybe sometimes people are talking too quietly and it's difficult to understand when someone's talking too quietly because you can't hear them. Maybe there's a lot of noise and it's difficult to understand when there's a lot of noise. Maybe sometimes there's too much to remember and it's really difficult to remember everything that you have to. Explain to them it's okay not to know, that we all feel like this sometimes. I feel like this. I sometimes forget people's names. I sometimes forget when there's too much to remember, or sometimes there's some tricky words. It's important to know we all feel like that sometimes. It's not because we're not doing our best or not listening. There's lots of reasons and it's not always our fault. The important thing to do is to remember to do something about it if you feel confused. What can I do? Having introduced the happy face, the confused face, it's important to have the resource ready to hand. What I generally do is prepare, photocopy, place back to back and laminate the images. Make sure each student can have access to a symbol at their table. It might be 1, 2 or more on each table. Explain to the children that you'll be putting them on the table and you will be putting the happy face up on the table. If they remember to do really good listening by doing good looking, good sitting and good waiting, it will help them to learn, it will help them understand. But sometimes, as we've discussed, it's not their fault and it's okay not to know, because sometimes it's just too hard. Sometimes it's just difficult to understand all the words, or maybe you couldn't hear what the teacher was saying. All the reasons discussed. If they feel confused in any way, what you'd like them to do is turn the card over, face with the confused face up. They don't need to put their hand up, they can just turn the card over and make you or an adult aware that they need support. Sometimes they need support in understanding what to say, how to ask for help, so you can give them some guidelines. Perhaps they can say, please say it again. Just might need repeating. You might need to show them. They might ask you to say it slowly. They might ask you what a word means. But a lot of the time, they just really don't know why they're confused. They're just confused. It could be a combination of things. You could have these visuals as well, or just giving them some cues as to the questions they can ask when they need support. So always try to get them to promise to use it, because it's okay not to know, because we all feel like that sometimes, and it's okay. Not only all the children that are learning, adults are learning all the time as well, and we're all there to learn and we don't know it all of the time. It's okay not to know, but it's important to ask for help. It's important to turn the card over when you need some help. And then they don't have to put their hand up and show everybody that they don't know, and they don't have to feel embarrassed. It's just a case of turning the card over. Reinforcing it's okay not to know in a learning environment is very important. It's important for the students to understand that even when we try so hard to listen and so hard to learn, we sometimes need help. Thank you for listening to me about how I use and introduce Maggie Johnson's It's Okay Not to Know strategy. Don't forget to praise them every time they use the strategy. Give them the confidence to use it again. Also, you can adapt how to present it, the language you use, the symbols, the visuals that you use according to the year groups. Most importantly, adapt, enjoy, and have fun helping your children, your class become confident and active listeners.